Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Super-Fanta-Fi. This being a show where I talk about TV shows of the supernatural, fantasy, and/or science fiction genre. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about the latest episode of Falling Water. So first of all, I'll start off with Taka's side of things because I think he kind of, arguably you could say he came out on top this episode, I guess. I mean, at first it's a conversation with Alice where he kind of brought up the whole dream for last episode, the one him, Burton, and Tess were in, where they saw that guy getting killed. He's like, oh man. It's like, oh man, those friends dying in a circle like that, all heads put together like that. That's a one way to die. Another way is to get choked basically by a bag while eating an ice cream sundae. And then Tess Alice looked at him like that. And basically, he's like trying to understand everything. He's like, why did they die like that? He's like, especially considering one of the people is actually a friend of hers, Tyler. She lived near her and everything, and she's crying about it because she didn't want him to die. She's like, it wasn't supposed to be like that. That basically they were kind of deceived or whatever, or betrayed or whatever. And that the fact is that it was meant to be for protection. So basically, the guy that she killed, or either the guy that, the Belgium himself, well, she said the guy that likes ice cream, so either she was talking about the guy himself or the guy he was working for, because he was basically the Belgian, the one that Burton's company or whatever that he's working for is trying to make the deal with. He's the Belgium, but I think also his associate was Belgium too. I think the one that they ended up killing, the one he ended up finding last episode that kind of like OD'd or whatever on cocaine or whatever. But that was as far as Alice went, saying like it was to protect them from him and just like asking all these questions. But then she kind of shut up after that because it's like basically calling him a sheep with mud in his face, like, and a sheep with their face covered in mud is just ready for the slaughter and started making sheep noises. So that in itself, once again, I don't know what the hell that's supposed to mean. I mean, it could be interpreted many different ways. Like, was what they were doing some kind of a ritual for protection, or was it like something else? Like they were trying to, I don't know. Like, is that something that the group themselves, that including the fake and Bowen, didn't know was going to happen? Or is it something they, like, the Belgium did or something like that? Maybe they were trying to do something in the dream world, but it backfired and they all ended up dying in the real world. Because Bill kind of brought that up this episode, saying, like, oh, it's a lie. Like, the whole thing about, like, dying in your dream and then you die in real life doesn't really happen. But let's focus on Taka for now. But why I say he kind of got lucky, there's that whole thing with Alice's, I guess, doctor, therapist, whatever you want to call it. That dream at first, I was like, okay, she's strippy. Okay, she's laying down. She's like, can you still see me? I'm like, is she about to start sticking over her panties? I'm like, okay. And then buzzing, and her legs are, it's like, wow. And then he actually meets her later on in that shop, and he could barely make eye contact with her. It's so weird and awkward. But then, like, he actually takes the opportunity to be like, hey, let's go on, I know this place. It's like, oh, like, we could go here, hang out a little bit, asking her eventually, like, oh, we could go on a date. She's like, I'm too old for that. And then proceeded to kind of bring that dream to life. She's in front of a mirror. Can you see me? And she's like, promise you won't move. He's like, I won't move. And it's just like, wow, dude. It caught me off guard. I was like, not only did they do it once this episode, they got me a second time with it. And the episode was like, oh my, that's like, obviously they're not going to go like hardcore. This ain't Cinemax or HBO, so obviously it's not going to be like full on but everything. But it's still, the fact is that was done just kind of blows my mind. I was like, oh, I can't handle it. I was like, this is happening. It's weird because it's like, because I'm talking about the show and everything. I mean, obviously I got to do my due diligence and pay extra attention to stuff like that, right? And to talk about it in excruciating detail, which I'm not going to, but it shocked me. I was not expecting something like that in this show. So, I mean, like I said, I feel like out of anyone, Taka kind of came out on top this episode. Surprisingly, what makes it weird is when you see that happening, at that time that is happening, you see his mom kind of screaming. Interestingly enough, I saw the actress who plays his mom in, what was it tonight? I think it was The Blacklist. She was in an episode of Blacklist. She was a doctor and everything, which I think I know her from, like, I haven't seen anything for a while, but I get kind of a somewhat short-lived, sitcom show, Sullivan and Son. She played the mom of the main character. I feel weird using the word protagonist when it doesn't come from like a drama or something. It's weird to use a sitcom. I don't know. It's the same thing, main character, main protagonist, but still, it's weird. To me, protagonist has to be a term used in like a series of just like, oh, there's, I don't know. It doesn't seem like a sitcom type of word, but nevertheless, I just thought I'd just include it. But the fact is that his mom was screaming at the same time that was happening. That was kind of like, that was weird. I don't know how to interpret that. Then you go to Burton's side of things, which I really like what they did with Burton's in this episode. Like, the fact is, like, he already established, he's like, I know your dream. He pieced that together last episode. It's like, because, like, the fact is, everything's coming together. It's like, you're a dream, you're not real. And he had that moment, like, he literally relived the dream 3 times. The first time, he's like, what are you writing? She's like, why do you care, essentially? Then talked about the fact that she's about to go on a date. And the fact is, Burton's like, you're not real, you're just something I made up. But then she's kind of like saying, like, oh, basically bringing up the memory when they first met. She's like, I promised I wasn't going to kiss you. I promised I wasn't going to kiss. And you kissed me, and they kissed. And then dream number 2, he ends up looking at what she was writing on a typewriter. It says, Mere Anarchy. Maybe what's meant to come or something like that. I don't know. Then he sees a blonde lady. He follows her. Ends up back at the restaurant. There's a red-headed lady at the bar, which I'm sure that's going to come up soon or at some point, or maybe she's important, or because it's never like an extras are there. Like, anyone that's ever in these dreams has importance. And he happens to go in the background and he sees the guy, I think his name's Woody, and the Belgian, and lo and behold, who's with them? The little boy. Because what we ended up learning at the beginning of the episode, because, you know, this is our first episode with Andy, apparently Andy is connected to fake Ann Bowen / this Topeka group or whatever. Like, he's connected to him. Apparently he ran away from them for like 3 years ago, got caught up with Bill, but now, like, this whole situation with Bill made him decide to kind of run back. Like, because that episode, it made it seem like he was like, don't tell Bill. They kind of replayed it at the beginning of the episode. At first I was interpreting it as like he was stealing something, which I can't tell if that's what he was doing, or was that him trying to, his dream, he was dreaming what he wanted to do, and that was to escape. That was him probably escaping from the group, but also from Bill. So, I mean, I'm sure there's something there. I don't know. But ultimately, you know, Burton decided to kind of put an end to it. When it came to the redheaded lady, like, he was like, you know, basically, I think he used the tennis ball as a means of kind of like a, I guess if I had to put it in Inception terms, I guess he kind of used it as like a totem to remind himself this is a dream, to give himself something to focus on. It's like, this right here is part of the dream. It's helping me break through the dream. And she's telling him, please don't let me go, because you'll be lost without me. You're the only thing. You're my beacon of light in this darkness. It's like, it is that she is 100% fake. What I'm trying to understand is, because I didn't really get a good enough look. I should have rewound it and paid attention, but is a blonde-haired lady supposed to be the real version of her, whereas the red-haired version is kind of like... Because they look like they were similar in the face, but maybe they're two completely different people. I don't know. It seemed like, you know, the blonde-haired lady he saw in his dream and everything, and he ended up meeting later on near the end of the episode, seemed like they might have been the same person as the red-headed woman, just like that's the real her, and she's just basically a fiction fabricated by his mind. Because the guy Woody or whatever kind of made a slight joke, because basically Burton was like, hey, let's go get some food at the, you know, the restaurant that basically plays a big part in, you know, the dreams and everything. And Woody kind of was like, oh, you don't think they deliver or nothing, do you, right? He's like, well, you always have to be careful. You never know, there might be a siren that kind of pops up, you know, and they can drag you down. So I guess referencing the red-headed woman. So that's the day of like, was she something necessary? Was she created by Burton because they wanted Burton to kind of create something to kind of act as a distraction, make him unsure what's real and what's not, or keep him distracted from what his dreams are really trying to tell him? I mean, like I said, there's so much, because dreams are so open to interpretations. There's so many different ways to interpret things in this show. So it's hard to say which way and direction things are going. So... But the fact is, he got rid of her, so I guess we're not going to be seeing her anymore. But it's like, he's got that blonde-haired lady that shows up for the meeting, because it's like, oh, trying to pull through with this deal with the Belgian, which I'm still not 100% sure what that's all about. What that's all, like I said, a lot of this show legitimately goes over my head. And then finally, I'm going to talk about Tess's part in this episode. She basically, like, the guy that she was visiting in the hospital, like, ex-lover or something like that, basically the dude's dying. They did have a sweet moment where she was like, you know, she wanted him to stay, because it's like, I guess he's one of the few things in reality that she can grasp on, something that she cares about. Is just kind of her last, you know, thing to keep her tied to reality, essentially, because life just kind of sucks otherwise. So he's dying, and she's like, oh, she brings him into a dream where they dance, but then gets pulled away by No Face, who shows up twice. because at the beginning he tried to get her, but then Bill was like, "Oh no, you don't have to worry about that guy. He's okay." She's like, "He didn't. Are you sure he's okay?" He's like, "Yeah." And once again, bringing it up the whole thing of like, "Oh yeah, you don't. If you die in your dream, you don't die in real life." Because he was like, because that whole thing started with Andy, because everyone was like, "Oh, Andy stroked out or whatever," and that ended up making people think like, "Oh, he died in the dream, so he ended up dying in real life." Not the case. But interestingly enough, because there was that moment, it sounded like No Face said, "Help me." And it's like, we still don't know what No Face was trying to do to her, dragging her away, especially in a tender moment like that, where she's trying to have that one dance with the guy, and then No Face pops up and drags her away. She ends up fighting back and putting a pickaxe into him. And then later on, at the very end of the episode, we're like, oh, turns out that pickaxe dude, No Face, is apparently Andy, because he ends up in the dumpster with the same wound. Now, whether that was coincidence or not, I don't know. Maybe one or two things. One, Bill might be full of shit. The fact is that if you do die in your dream, you do die in reality. That maybe that dude, when he woke up, he had marks on his neck showing that. Like I said, I don't trust Bill. Like, Andy ran away from him for some reason. it's kind of understandable why he might run away from that Topeka group or whatever, because it's like they're up to some weird stuff and there's no telling where that might go. But it's like I said, I just don't like, ever since that dream in the first episode or whatever with Bill and running over those people, like that's just how I interpret it. It's like he's a bad guy willing to kill and use whoever he needs to. He doesn't ultimately care about helping Tess find her son. All he cares about is doing this testing and stuff like that. So I don't know. Maybe we'll get to see, like, I just feel like he's going to turn around and be like our villain of the episode, because the lady had mentioned in that beginning episode that the boy was missing. That's what she was telling Andy. So maybe that was the point of trying to take Tess, because they wanted to take Tess to kind of be easier to track down the boy. As we saw with Burton, they had the boy. So, like, I thought it was going to be the Topeka group that has them, like Ann Bowen and stuff like that. But apparently they had him, but now they've lost him. So it's like apparently there's another group, or not less there's people within the Topeka group, because there was Jones in the beginning who ended up killing himself. So maybe he got caught in the middle of like two separate groups. Maybe there's one part of Topeka trying to branch off and do their own thing. They're not in the main groups. Maybe there's the group that Taka's after with the fake Ambo, and maybe they're one side of Topeka, like maybe they're the purists. No, they're not trying to do very dangerous stuff, but then you have the other side of it, like Woody and his people, and maybe Jones was associated too. We're trying to do very scandalous things that they have ulterior motives, that they're the more dangerous group, whereas Bowen's side isn't. I don't know. But like, I ultimately believe that might be the case now. I'm thinking about it. Like, they were trying to get Tess because maybe he is Tess's son. I don't know. Maybe he's a fabrication of Tess's mind. That basically he's something, because Tess is not a normal dreamer. That's why Bill is taking so much of an interest in her. So maybe just as the same thing as the lady was kind of figment of Burton's imagination, maybe the boy is too, or whatever that case may be. It's like, I'm curious why Andy ended up appearing the way he did. Now, maybe really what we'll end up finding out, that it just happened to be a happy coincidence that basically Andy died the same way, and maybe the people that Topeka did the same thing to, because he ended up bumping into Tess in real life. So I don't know. And will she ever find out, or will Bill or will this Topeka group cover up the fact that it's like, oh, Andy was found? Like, I'm curious to see what Tess will do when she sees the way he's dressed, as well as where his wound is, and make her realize, oh, she did that to him. Like, it happened in a dream. And I'll make her realize that Bill was wrong about what happens in your dream can kill you. So. And also, she ran into that guy again. What was his name? The guy she kind of met from the group that she kind of, well, not kind of, she straight up slept with. Sorry. What I'm wondering, because basically he's saying like, oh, she got him kicked out of the group. Because that was the whole thing, because it's like, oh, you're messing with the whole, Bill was so pissed when he found out, because it's like, I'm keeping tabs on everyone. It's like, you're messing with the study because you're together. Like, that was kind of a big no-no and everything. She kind of broke things up off with him just that limited time they spent together, because the whole thing, seeing her son on a flyer now, because she doesn't know that her son being on a flyer, the boy on a flyer being a symbol, it's just kind of all over the place. It pops up definitely a lot in Taka's life, but it's not just something he himself had. I think what disturbed her the most is because it's her son. It's something straight out of her dream, and it kind of feels like creepy. I guess it's like, how can you have this? The only person that's supposed to be seeing him is me, because she draws his face every time she sees him, and she has it plastered on her wall and everything. So I'm curious. I mean, we never actually, because last episode we left off that she decided to kind of stay back home for a little while. So I'm surprised I didn't even think about that while I was watching the episode. We didn't pick up with her back home, so I guess that was done. I don't know. Maybe we get a little bit more with her family. Like I get it. Like I get the feeling her mom knows more about this than she lets on. Just the way she was very defensive of her. The reason why she always took such an interest in Tess when she got older and everything. So why there's only like 40 some boxes for her sister, but for Tess there's like a crap ton. Wasn't it like 300 something last time? Nevertheless, but dude was a total douchebag this episode, basically blaming her for getting kicked out of the group, which, like I said, I'm pretty sure like all that because she doesn't know about like the fact is that, you know, 'cause it just messed with her because it's like, you got this picture, I don't like the fact that you have this picture, this is something for me only, it's kind of something only in my dreams or something. So I'm guessing in her mind she was thinking like he violated her dreams or something like that. The only way he could get a picture like that is maybe he, you know, she thought he made it up or something, or he made it or something. That's the only reason I could think, the reason why she flipped out like that. But like the fact is Bill was like, I only care about you, everyone else in the group could go away, but you're the one that's important to me. So it's like I'll get rid of him if that just means that you'll stay, which I guess she did tell him to get rid. Cause I thought Bill got rid of him because it's like, oh yeah, you I want to keep Tess, you get out, because it's like, screw you kind of screwing with the study and everything. But he blames her but the dude blames Tess because it's like, oh, you told him to get rid of me. And he's kind of pushing on her and everything. It's like, dude, keep your damn hands to yourself, you jackass. And he's like saying all this stuff, being like basically that she's broken and that she's all alone. That basically comparing her to Goldilocks. Seems like you're coming in to get a sample of eating up everybody's food, laying in everyone's bed, kind of doing your own thing. And the bears came home and ate Goldilocks. He's like, you don't have to worry about me doing anything to you, because sooner or later a monster will come along and swallow you. It's like, I want something bad to happen to you. I was hoping that someone was like, kick him in the nuts or something, please shut him up, he's such an asshole. But sadly it never happened. So I'm very curious to see what's that. I guess that's kind of pushing her. That's what kind of pushed her more towards a guy that was dying in this episode, kind of, you know, because, you know, reality just kind of sucks, and so she needed to hold on to something good, and it's like, that's why she wanted to stay, because it's like, oh, you're the only good thing in my life, because everything else is just, you know, shit. So very good episode, and I'm just curious to see where everything goes from here next time. But that's really all I want to talk about in this episode. Till the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day and goodbye.